Hello, everybody, and welcome Soul to Soul. We show up here every week, and I am Joy,
I'm
and my
oh,
co-host.
Ame-Lia Tamburrini. So great to be here with you, Joy. So great to be here with all y'all. Happy Wednesday.
Yes, happy WINS day, you guys. And speaking of Wednesday, before we even get into why do we do this? Why are we showing up every week? It just struck me, Ame-Lia, when you said happy Wednesday. That's part of the reason why we do this show is to take a moment and on Wednesdays have a little pause to celebrate or be in gratitude, like celebrate wins, right? And I just want to do that because it's a feel good thing. So I don't know. I'm just celebrating that I showed up here. Because hey, seriously, showing up when you've made a commitment that you're going to do something. I don't know about everybody else, but for me, I don't always feel I love coming to these soul to souls. Actually, I do. This is a highlight of my week, and I love these conversations that we have, Ame-Lia, and it's a bright spot, and it's a feel good thing that I do. But I just want to celebrate like all the little things that I did that were on my list Monday, Tuesday, things that maybe even didn't seem like big things. Like, hey, I went through that stack of mail because I wanted to push that off my desk, or hey, I was responsible and paid some bills, or whatever. All the little things that I've done up until right now, I just want to pause and celebrate that and say, yay, me for being responsible and crossing stuff off my list. I feel like I'm at a good place to be where I want it to be at the end of the week when I set my milestones and set my roadmap for the week. So it's midweek. I'm feeling like I'm in a good place, celebrating that. What are
Yeah.
you celebrating?
Oh gosh, sort of related actually. It's been a few days of super adulting. Did we talk? We talked about super adulting last week. That's my theme this year, and it is that I have been doing the things that I committed to. And sometimes in the past, I found myself not doing that or putting them off and then waiting or then eventually bailing or canceling. And this week, even though there are things that I would rather be doing, I have committed strongly to getting the things done that I committed to, that I told other folks that I would do. And that feels good. I could feel my self-confidence, my self-esteem strengthening because I'm in my word, I'm in my integrity. And there's something so powerful about that. So that's what I'm celebrating.
Yay! I celebrate
Yay.
you for that. And yeah, you introduced the term super adulting in our last conversation, which I loved. Yeah. And so, folks, we show up here. For those of you who are maybe checking us out for the first time, we show up every Wednesday. Something that we started doing in the last quarter of 2022 because Ame-Lia and I both were sort of sitting back and watching the landscape of society, if you will, and we were seeing that, wait a minute, and among ourselves, we would talk about what is going on that people don't seem to be able to just talk anymore. What the heck is going on that everybody seems so sensitive and like we have to tiptoe around topics and people are literally like afraid to speak what's on their minds. And we were not okay with that. And we didn't want to have anything to do with that because we're both firm believers in expressing yourself and being super adult. Let's use that term as much as we can, right? Like we're starting something, y'all, with this super adulting. So seriously, there's something super adult-ish about being able to sit and have a conversation. And even if and even when the other person thinks differently,
Mm.
or has a different perspective or doesn't agree with what you're saying, to be able to still respect that person and still be able to have dialogue and perhaps even become curious, and maybe they know something, maybe they're seeing something that you don't see. So hey, let me learn instead of getting defensive, right? And fighting and being divisive. So we just want to create this space to be able to share and talk about what's on our minds and encourage you guys to join in on the conversation and just really model that it is still possible, even though sometimes things look like super crazy in the world and in society. It is still possible to treat people with kindness and to have love, which we both do for humans, for humanity. Doesn't mean that we have to agree with everything that everybody else thinks or says, but let's love people and
Mm.
let's be able to talk and be civil and be kind, right?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a process, it's a journey. We were just talking earlier before we went live about situations maybe in our own lives where we're like, "Oh, yeah, we had that wake up moment of, oh, maybe I'm not really being kind or curious in this moment," and then going back and really being with what that feels like. But it's a
Mhm.
process. We're not gonna do it perfectly, and it's necessary that we start and try and surround ourselves with other folks who are committed to the same kind of thing, so that we can go on this journey together
Mhm.
and start to have conversations that help us to connect versus place bigger and bigger divides between us.
Mhm. Ooh, that's so good, and thank you for bringing that up. We were chatting before we came on the air, and I was actually sharing and I wanna put this out there because you guys, if you're watching this, most likely you're gonna be watching, because most people do after, right? So as you're watching the replay, I would love to know if what I'm about to say resonates with you in any way. And I'm going to be totally honest and transparent, because I was sharing with you, Ame-Lia, that even though, sometimes we're in this work of, hey, I'm going to work on myself, and I'm all about personal development and growth, and really try to just show up as the best version of me every day, and let me learn and let me be self-aware and all of that, which is part of super adulting. um and it
We're gonna make a t-shirt. I'm gonna make a t-shirt.
I love it. I love it. Super adulting. I can see t-shirts, caps, mugs, right? Yeah, let's do it. Let's get on that.
Okay.
Yeah, merch it up. Super adulting. But I'm so big on all those things, right? I'm a firm believer in all of that. And I share with you that I was watching a program um that I love, and it's called Better Together, you guys. So I don't know, maybe some of you watch or have seen that program, and it's a group of women, and it's a different group every week, but they get together and they kind of like what we do on Soul to Soul. They just talk, real talk, being themselves. What they have in common is they're all Christian women, and some of them are pastors, some of them are like worship leaders in their church, and things like that. But they talk about the Bible in practical ways. It's not all like super religious, and they share, like, this is what I'm struggling with. Hey, I'm not, getting everything right in my own life every day. And so they were talking about forgiveness and some other topics. And while they were talking about what they're struggling with in practical ways, it just sort of hit me how in one of my primary relationships, in my efforts to be true to myself and speak my mind and, hey, rush into those tough conversations and don't shy away because that's the super adult thing to do. And all of that sounds good in my mind when I'm doing it. But what I realized was I've been caught up in pride. Like,
Mm.
I have not been kind uh the way that I want to be. I've not been approaching conversations in humility. And what really struck me, and I'm so glad that I know that God loves me, because I didn't feel condemnation. I felt like something had been peeled back, and I was able to see me the way that I was really coming across, right? The way that I was really being, because my head tells me, oh, I'm doing all the things. I'm speaking my mind. That's a good thing. I'm like really, really being super intentional to say what I mean and mean what I say. And while that may be good from an intellectual space, how we interact with people is everything, right? So I just saw, ooh, and I'm like, thank you, God, for peeling back me, that part, those parts of me that have been hard, really, that I didn't even know were there. Cause now I can see the real me underneath, the soft me, the kind me, because that's who I really am. I'm like, all right, help me to be more true to who I really am, like who you really created me to be. Because that's the real me underneath those layers. And I'm doing these hand gestures because the way that I see it is almost like there's a and I think this is true for all of us. Like there are two us's almost sometimes. There's the real us in our core. There's that us that God created us to be. That version of us is perfect. It really is. And it's just like him. And then there's this other self that's I'm doing this because a lot of that is the stuff that we've put on or that society has put on us. So it's almost like those Tootsie Pops. Remember those like Tootsie Roll Pops where it's like hard shell on the outside, but on the inside it's soft, you know? Um, so it's like, oh, I think the work, the super adulting work a lot of times really is to just tap into that chewy center, the softness. Let the softness shine through. And I think
Mm.
in order for that to happen though, it's like this willingness to, for me, it's about allowing God really to chip away at those layers because I don't think that we're capable of doing that sort of work, like
Mm.
that inner work. How do you take those layers off, like really when it comes to things like pride? I think that's an inside out transformative process. So I'm feeling very um humbled by that revelation that I feel like I got this morning and it helped me to see me. um then I had to go to my husband. I didn't have to, but I felt inclined and I did. Like I went to him and I'm like, you know what, I just I am so sorry that I have not been respecting who you are as an individual, right? It's like we have these conversations and then I'll jump into, yeah, but you're not seeing. And I'm like, no, let me help you. It's like, in doing that, I realized I was not, and whether it's him, I'm just using him as an example, but even like in friendships, sometimes we can jump into an intellectual space of let me communicate effectively and let me do all these things, and none of that matters if it's not clothed in humility
Mm.
and kindness. So I am very much wanting to and I know that's like a tough thing to ask for. It's like, Joy, are you really about to put out there in the world that you want more humility? Because when you ask for that, oh, you will be humble. The
Yeah.
universe will bring you, and it does not feel good. But yeah, I am
Mm.
wanting that. Because what I saw also in scripture is, oh my gosh, humility is it. Like that is the path to being promoted. When we humble ourselves, God Himself exalts us. Then we're ready for promotion. So I'm like, all right, yeah, let me sit in humility and learn whatever it is and get that hard stuff wherever it exists, in places that I don't even know. Let me see all that, and then yeah, let's get that off.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing like a very practical example that myself and I know others will be able to tap into, especially those folks that we have those deeper, intimate relationships with. I think it kind of gets messy in there about which part of us we're actually acting from, whether it's love or fear. And
Mm.
sometimes it is a journey, and it does take something outside of us, maybe in a different context, to be like, oh, ooh, I couldn't see it, but now I can. And once you have some distance,
Mhm.
um, what I want to add to this conversation is, we're talking about super adulting, and it's kind of like a funny thing. And perhaps, when I was younger than I am now, I thought anything adult was like pretty lame, and like I never wanted to do or be that because that seems very serious, and I I'm on a mission to be less serious, to be honest, because I've taken life very seriously. But the secret sauce of what
Mhm.
you just described, and I just went through this recently too with a client where I was like in this process of justifying a decision I had made, even though it had led to some harm. But I was like, no, like I wanted to be like the super responsible, uh, like business owner. And like, I was like, we produce good things and all of anyways, it didn't feel good inside. And then I had this aha moment of like, oh, Ame-Lia, you're not taking responsibility for the area that you weren't really in your integrity on. And once I realized that and then took responsibility, and I see this in you too, and in the energy that has shifted, there's freedom in
Mm.
that space, because when we're not living in that integrity and being true to that core of who we are, we're lying.
Mm.
When we're in that constant state of like, we're lying to ourselves primarily, which is like the ultimate, what's the good word? Uh, it's just kind of like one of the worst things we can do for ourselves and our own self-esteem is to lie to ourselves. But the thing about lying all the time is exhausting.
Yeah.
Because we have to keep it up. Like we have to keep the layers on and keep carrying them around, and then we add to them because we got to bolster the story, and and now we've built it up so far, and it's like, oh, now it would be even more detrimental if we actually admitted that we were wrong, or that we had some responsibility in the matter. And it just becomes this like snowball thing which is exhausting. And
Mm.
so for me in this circumstance, and you can tell me what your experience was, well, like when I took responsibility, this huge weight lifted, and I had so much light and more joy, and I was able to just experience more happiness and joy. So super adulting, the ultimate result is more engagement in
Oh
your
my
heart
God.
and in your life. And from that place, you're just able to give so much more, but also really be able to sit in self-compassion and self-love and self-esteem, which is healing, and really what we all need if we're going to heal the divides in our world. Like, we need to heal those crevices in ourselves, and I think a big part of that is living in our integrity and being honest with ourselves.
I could cry right now from being overjoyed.
Mm.
The joyful
Yeah.
tears, because yeah, everything you just said absolutely on so many levels resonates. Yeah, I did feel also like you. I did feel a freedom. I felt like, oh, something had been lifted, both when I acknowledged and had my communication with God. So, like in that vertical communication. Um, and then I read there's a scripture that explains that process. And I was like, oh wow, now it's being backed up. Uh-oh, now this is not just a hunch. This is a truth from scripture that literally Jesus said in Philippians, I think it's chapter 2, for those of you who are watching this who are Bible readers, check this out because this is profound. What you just said, Ame-Lia, about it moves us into joy. Literally, Jesus said, fulfill my joy. Like it brings him joy, and it sparks and ignites the joy that's in us that he's put there, right? We tap into that through this process of when we esteem, like Bible talk, it said, esteem others more highly than yourself, which really is I don't know, old, whatever that language is that they were speaking back in biblical times. With that's really another way of saying when we see, when we come to situations where we choose to respect and honor that other person, whatever it is. In your case, it was a client, right? That situation. In mine, it was my husband. Honor that person, respect them, and honor treating people with love, respect, and kindness honor that above our own. No, but I'm going to, right? Whatever that stuff that you and I both are experiencing. In your case, it was, well, no, we did good work. We did, okay. Let that be secondary. Put that other person first, which really
Mm.
is humility.
Yeah.
And when we do that, it brings him joy and we experience joy and freedom. So it's like a spiritual law in a sense, or a spiritual principle that is at work. And absolutely,
Mm.
that's what I felt. And I love that you said when we are in that space, the reason why it doesn't feel good is we're lying to ourselves. We're not being the real us. We're literally like deceiving ourselves in that moment. And that's just so profound to me, because I think this is something else that we may have been talking about before we went on the air. I was certainly having this conversation with myself earlier today and with God. Like that vertical conversation that I was having on this is that process. It's like, in order to come out of deception, you have to, there has to be an aha. There has to be a moment where you see it. And it's like, oh, wait, hold on. I've been lying to myself. Like usually that comes in the form of an aha. I don't think any of us consciously and intentionally go into that mode where we're like, oh, let me lie to myself right now. I don't
No.
think that's how it works. That's not how it works for me. So that requires, I think, having people in our lives. I'm going to go horizontal and vertical because that's how it's coming to me. So like those horizontal relationships, like what you and I have, and I thank God for having community, people in your life who will maybe help you to see what you're not even seeing sometimes. People who will, with love and kindness, be like, hey, are you, you, you know what I mean? Because sometimes we're not
Like, what else
seeing,
what else could be
yeah, like
true here?
what's happening. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, I love that God does that. Like in my quiet time, when I am in communication with Him, I'm like, Lord, show me what I'm not seeing. And when I get quiet and I hear His voice, He will show me with love, never in a way that makes me feel bad about my flaws, but always in love and kindness. Hey, yeah, there's this area, and we together, are going to work on this.
Mhm.
But I don't know if we're capable of seeing the deception ourselves all the time.
Mm.
We lie to
Yeah.
ourselves and we don't even know it.
Totally. I mean, I don't know either. Maybe there's a case out there, and if you're that one person, like, let us know in the
Yeah.
chat. Like, seriously, that would be awesome. I think it is hard, and I'm with you in terms of asking, for the divine guidance from spirit, from the universe, from God. And I think as you were talking, I was like, oh yeah, this is another one of 1,000 reasons why I love Circle, because when people are sitting there, so maybe with strangers, but maybe with peers, and people are sharing their stories about their own journeys, their own struggles, their own stuff that's going on. It's usually when people are hearing somebody else's story and they're like, oh, hmm, they can see themselves now in a new light. But if
Mhm.
someone sat down in front of them and was like, I don't know, Joy, like, what do you think about like this other perspective? Like, we might dig our heels in even tighter, but there's something about just that distance when it's not about us, that
Mm.
it allows our brain to maybe allow some other reality or truth in that we can see, and
Mhm.
then it's amazing when you have that support group around you, or the connection with, something bigger than yourself, to know that you are loved 100%,
Mhm.
even no matter how you show up, um, and that you have a choice then in that matter to go and make amends if that feels right, make amends with yourself, whatever that might be. So,
Mhm.
yeah, the journey is profound, and it's all part of this expansion that we're in. And I think for me, the more I can embrace and just really buy in, like, I think I heard this in one of my business trainings the other day. It's like the learning never stops. It never stops, like, until you die.
Mhm.
And the human mind wants to believe that it's gonna stop at some point, because it's like, I don't wanna keep learning. I don't wanna keep growing, like, this is because there's pain in it, right? If you're really truly checking in and feeling it, it can suck.
Yeah. Like,
But
I don't want to be a super adult.
yeah, forget that stuff. I'm just gonna go play in the sandbox, by myself. So, and once you do it enough, and you can kind of like remember that on the other side is the joy, is the love, is
Yeah.
the everything that you're actually seeking in your core, and have friends
Mhm.
that remind you of that, and have spirit remind you of that, and then you're just like, yeah,
Mhm.
that's it.
And the freedom that's
Freedom.
on the other side. I love that you call it circle. I tease you about like what's with you and circles. Um, yeah, and I thought about Ame-Lia because you and I are part of a group that meets every other Saturday. And it's a group of women, and we uh women from different backgrounds, women with different life experiences, and I guess that is a circle of sorts, right? It's a
Mhm.
group, and we're there because we all want to grow and develop and get more deeply rooted spiritually, but we talk about life stuff, right? And as you were talking, I thought about how true and profound your share was. Because even for me, that aha that I had, it started with me watching this group of women share their experiences and their struggles. And I saw myself in their stories, right? And I thought about how when we get together for our spiritual development group, almost always there are ahas that, like, one woman will have an aha because of something that somebody else said, right? Or somebody else says, oh, you know what? This really struck me this way because I've been dealing with this or that. There's always somebody else in the group that gets something. We all get something from each other's stories.
Mm.
So, hey, somebody might be watching this. Speaking of this, if you're watching this and you're like, hey, spiritual development, I want that in my life. If you're a guy, sorry, my group is just for women. My group is just for women, but I do know of men only groups like that. So if you're looking for that, let us know and I can maybe connect you with a group. If you're a female and you want to be connected with a group, drop a note and let us know. And you know, you might want to come to some of our meetings. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I just felt that maybe somebody, you know, is listening. They're like, yeah, I don't have a group like that. I
Mm.
don't have a circle. So I just wanted to make the invite.
Beautiful. That's lovely. Yeah. More the merrier. I love it. So if you are listening and just as we've been sharing and you're like, oh yeah, and us sharing our stories, maybe you had an aha about your own life, or maybe you've had an aha in other circles. Like we'd love to hear about it and really be in conversation with you about this topic. I think it's so important because this journey doesn't stop, this journey of evolution and going through this stuff. And the more we can come together and share our stories, support one another, you know, be seen in this journey, oof, like just the more powerful we become and the more quickly we will bring about this beautiful, loving, nourishing world that we want to be in and co-create together. So join us in the conversation, join us in the chat. We're paying attention and we will get in there and reply and be in conversation with you.
Absolutely. And yeah, let's keep it fun. Learning can be fun, right?
Yeah.
It's like every day, I know I feel like every day I'm in school. I've got like my little glasses on and like, all right, I'm taking notes. There's always something to learn. And you know, that can be fun if you're going on the journey with other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Joy. This has been fun.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you guys for tuning in, sharing. We would love to know, as Ame-Lia said, what resonated with you. How are you experiencing some of the things that we talked about? Yeah, what's on your mind? We want to know.
See you next week.
See you next week. Bye. Love and peace. Happy Wednesday.